Hello, good day, everyone. Welcome to our next session. Here we'll be talking about the rise of crypto asset class in Southeast Asia. The question is, will the frenzy last? So I'm joined by my colleague here, Rachel, who's a writer for Deal Street Asia. She'll be co-moderating this event, and we're happy to be joined by Jeth Soetoyo, founder and CEO of Pintu, Hemant, Mohapatra, partner at Lightspeed, and Alex Svaneik, co-founder and CEO of Nansen. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If we can maybe start with you introducing yourself and explain maybe what your company is doing in crypto space. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
We can start with you, Jeth, maybe.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us, Andy, and the whole team at Deal Street Asia. Just a brief background about myself. I came into the space around 2017 and started my journey working on at Consensus, which is a blockchain incubation lab out in the US. And at the time, I was working on cross-chain atomic swaps, which was sort of like a precursor to what DEXs or decentralized exchanges look like today. And my journey with Pintu started in 2019. Actually, our first product before Pintu was called Rupiah Token, which is a stablecoin for the Indonesian market. And subsequently, we launched Pintu in 2020. And in a nutshell, Pintu is basically trying to build a cryptocurrency bank for the mass market in Indonesia. Our whole goal is to help onboard the next 20 million or 50 million customers in Indonesia to invest into crypto and to own a piece of cryptocurrency. And we try to focus on the long tail of the market, who are new users and for the most part new investors. And yeah, I think for the last 1 year we've seen a tremendous growth, and we think we're just still at the tip of the iceberg, and very excited in what the future of crypto holds.
Thank you, Jeth. I can go next. I'm Hemant Mohapatra, one of the partners at Lightspeed. We are a global venture capital firm based out of US, China, India, Southeast Asia, and Europe. Pretty active in the crypto ecosystem as an investor since 2013, and I'll talk more about that during the talk. And also very, very glad and thankful to be an investor in Pintu. So I've been working with Jeth quite closely. And I'm based out of India.
All right. My name is Alex. I'm the CEO and one of 3 co-founders of Nansen, which is a blockchain analytics platform. We have the most comprehensive data on decentralized finance and NFTs in the space. My own background is in artificial intelligence. Worked a few years in management consulting, and have been working in the crypto and data intersection since 2017.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your introduction. Sorry, I think Andy, because of his internet, had to go off for a bit. I'll just be taking over for now. So yeah, just to roll things off, we've seen that crypto has really seen a huge boom in the past year and a half since the start of the pandemic. I mean, on one hand, retail investors are also piling into it, but alongside institutional investors. So, that has also really increased the price of a lot of the cryptocurrencies. But at the same time, we see prices are really volatile, and we do see that regulators are trying to catch up to either crack down or regulate the industry. So, in your opinion, with all of this, what are your thoughts about the crypto industry, and what do these regulations also mean going forward? So anyone can take it first.
Yeah, I mean, I can kick it off. So we have been investors in crypto since 2013 with the company called blockchain.com, which is still one of the largest custodial wallet in the Ethereum ecosystem globally right now. So we have seen a bunch of ups and downs. In the last 2 years, the ecosystem has really taken off in a very big way, both from the retail, zeitgeist being very accepting of crypto with things like blockchain gaming, as well as NFTs kind of really taking center stage in the crypto buzz, and also a lot of institutional participation, especially in crypto mature markets like the US. We are seeing similar behavior shifts happening in India. Indian government is thinking about categorizing crypto as a commodity, similar to what Indonesia has done in the past, which has been very good for that ecosystem. So we're expecting similar things to happen for India. after a couple of years of pretty strict bans on the crypto ecosystem, especially in India. But we do expect things to go up and down. I mean, look, this is an economy, and Jeth will probably tell more about that. We've had several chats on this. This is an economy that is trying to upend 1,000-year-old ecosystem of traditional finance. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be smooth. There'll be a lot of friction. There'll be a lot of pushback, and we are expecting it. So I'll maybe talk a bit more about what specific to the Southeast Asian and Indian region, what's going on. But roughly, we are long-term investors, so we do expect a bunch of ups and downs to happen, which is also why we tend to back many founders that have been in the ecosystem during the downturns, so they do stick around when things don't go their way, which they wouldn't.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, what Hemant mentioned, I think fundamentally, crypto is just a very resilient ecosystem. I think fundamentally, it's essentially a peer-to-peer network, and it makes it very difficult for centralized entities to intervene and to sort of like create too much regulation. I think at the end of the day, there will be regulation, and it will be good to add credibility to the space. But at the same time, whenever you have an over-stringent regulation on this industry, especially like something like crypto, I think there will be solutions that will be made to sort of like figure out what's the next step for consumers. Because at the end of the day, I think there's a great product market fit for a lot of different people around the world who might not have as great of an access to some of the financial applications that crypto provides. And I think one way or another, they will find a way to get into it. And so like what Hemant mentioned earlier, there will always be ups and downs. But I think we've seen through the last decade or so, I think the ones who stick around tend to do well for themselves.
Yeah, I think also a big difference from the last bull cycle in 2017 is that now you have proven applications of blockchains. And so you have decentralized finance, which has risen to become a very unique value proposition, which has attracted a lot of capital, especially from the institutional sector. But you also have NFTs, like Hemant mentioned, with NFT-based gaming, blockchain-based gaming, which is a huge sector. And NFTs have also created kind of an intersection with the culture world, arts, entertainment, music, media. And so that's another big area where I think in 2017, you had a lot of white papers, you had a lot of promises, a lot of vision, but you didn't see the applications. But this time around, you see a big difference where people are actually using blockchains for meaningful purposes.
Okay, so it seems like the adoption is growing, but maybe this is just maybe from my personal end, it seems like the adoption of NFTs, the adoption of DeFi still seems to be in a little bit of a kind of the crypto world in that sense, where it's just people who are crypto fans who are kind of developing these things. When do you think it will go mainstream, and then how do you think it can do so?
Yeah, maybe if I can just tap into that, because I think it is true that crypto is a very small space and it is kind of its own little bubble of enthusiasts. At the same time, there are some promising projects that have shown that it is possible to break out of that bubble. I think one of the great examples is actually from this region of the world, which is Axie Infinity. And so Axie Infinity is a blockchain-based game. And what's interesting is that, first of all, they have managed to combine gaming with blockchain in a way that is somewhat novel. But the more interesting thing is that they've also attracted people who are from outside of crypto to actually engage with it. And so they have a huge community in the Philippines, for example. I think more than 1 million users are actually playing Axie. Last time I looked at the data, they have something like 250,000 people interacting on their blockchain every day. So I think there are some good examples out there, but of course, it is also very much a bubble still, with a long way to go before you reach mainstream adoption.
I would second that. I mean, I feel like as an investor, we see so many companies coming out of the woodwork, especially in the NFT ecosystem today. And look, I mean, we have seen this journey before, right? I mean, 10 years ago, it was everything cloud, and 5 years ago, it was everything AI. 15 years ago or something else, right? And this is going to happen. I think it's a good thing for the ecosystem for us to see a lot of companies coming out, even though it's sort of building up in a bubble, and it seems like a bubble from the outside, and even from the inside, sometimes it does feel like a bubble. The question that you had around when will this reach mainstream, I think these things tend to get distribution really, really quickly once they find product market fit in a niche community, right? I mean, as an investor, we always think about go where the nerds and the geeks are, spending their weekends and figure out what they are really interested in. And then, once they adopt something, usually it tends to happen that the community expands there because these people become really big evangelists of what they really believe in, and they have a really big voice, right? I mean, do I expect a lot of deaths to happen in the NFT ecosystem? 100%. I would say 95% of the companies that we see today that are raising capital probably wouldn't be able to raise Series B onwards. That's a guarantee. I can sort of say with high confidence. But that's a good thing for the ecosystem because you quickly iterate on things that actually work, products that actually work, approaches that actually work, incentive structures in NFT that actually work. And once it does work, which it did for Axie Infinity, it just scales like mad. And that's what you want. You want to figure out what really works instead of wasting tens of years figuring out what doesn't and then having mediocre outcomes. So we really like this kind of high churn, high death rate businesses. So once you get to the needle hole of figuring out what really works, we can capitalize them much more confidently and much more in a big way.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Sorry, Jeth.
No, I just wanted to add. I agree with what Alex and Hemant mentioned. Just to add a little bit, what I see in Indonesia, there's even a lot of people who may not be as interested in investing in crypto, but jump directly into NFTs or some of these crypto gaming projects. I think it just goes to show, as more use cases beyond decentralized finance, beyond NFT or gaming pop up, we will start pulling in more and more users into the ecosystem. And I think we've seen that. I think prior to NFTs or gaming, a lot of the people who came into crypto were pretty much from traditional finance, right? Traditional finance guys who see that there's a lot of value prop for working into, and crypto came in. And then with gaming around, you start seeing a lot of the game houses and game developers come in. And with NFTs, artists come in. And so as you see more and more use cases pop up, I think it's gradually just going to pull in more and more markets. And I think to be honest, I don't think we're very far away from mass adoption. I think if you look at the US, like pretty much a high percentage of the population already own crypto. And even in Indonesia, like the number of people who own crypto already, it's already larger than the amount of people who own equity. And so I think I think we're not very far away. So that's my opinion.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. We saw crypto adoption really go. I mean, everyone's having wallets and different kinds of coins now. Just stepping back a bit. I mean, how did you guys see the pandemic kind of shape the adoption of cryptocurrency? And, what do you think will happen after the pandemic? So like on the example of Axie Infinity, because we have read about how people have used it to kind of as a kind of a job even, what comes after the pandemic when we can go out again and stuff, would we see adoption of NFT games and stuff fall?
I can take a quick cut at this. We spent a bunch of time in the blockchain ecosystem, blockchain gaming ecosystem. Look, I think, as I said before, we are looking for things that have high engagement. Today, if you look at the games like Axie Infinity, they have D90 engagement of roughly 93-95%. Where else do you see this kind of engagement? You see it in jobs, people who are working, right? They're coming there every day. 30 days later, they are still coming pretty much 100% of the time. 90 days later, they're still coming every day, right? That's a job-like behavior, which is what Axie Infinity, is at this point in time. This is how a lot of the people are making money. We are looking for things. I think it'll evolve beyond an activity to make money. It'll evolve beyond that to have fun. And once you really do have fun playing these games, there'll be a part of the ecosystem that will be more about, I'm going to pay money to have fun, and somebody else will spend time on the ecosystem to actually earn money and probably not have as much fun. And that's when the balance will come in of third-party equity coming from the outside the ecosystem into the ecosystem, and the ecosystem benefiting from it, right? And then giving something back in return for the capital that is being injected. I think these cycles take time, but once they figure it out, it's going to be a pretty unique way to incentivize all stakeholders through crypto. And then it's very hard to predict how big this can possibly become. It can become very, very large. To answer your question, will we see similar engagements post-pandemic? I mean, I think we are post-pandemic in most countries now, and engagement is pretty high still. So I'm very hopeful.
Okay. And so I think going to Pintu, Jeth, I'm sure now you have a lot of insights about how Indonesia has adopted cryptocurrency. Maybe you could describe a little bit about what the demographic profile of your of the traders are like right now. What are the average investment values, and what do you foresee in the future?
Sure. So, and from our customer base, the average age, the 80% of our customers are aged between 18 and 35. But we do still see quite a number of customers who are 35 plus. And I think typically with these older age groups, they tend to put a larger amount in terms of dollar value into crypto. In terms of the typical check size, I think for a customer, it will probably range between $300 to $1,000, something around those lines. And that's what we've seen. But I think more and more we're starting to see older age groups come in and wanting to get exposure to crypto, as well as corporations and institutions. Actually, that's sort of like a market we haven't seen grow as much in Indonesia compared to some of the Western countries. So I do expect that part of the business to grow as well.
Okay. And I mean, I know that your platform is kind of focus on teaching people how to trade and what crypto is about. I think Nansen is also doing so as a researcher. I mean, could you maybe just share some of the ways that you guys are kind of educating the public about how, what crypto is about and how to use it?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Alex, you go ahead.
Yeah, so with Nansen, there are basically three things we help our customers with. The first is to discover opportunities, which is surfaced through blockchain activity. So you can actually see on the blockchain what people are putting capital into with regards to yield farms, smart contracts they're using, NFT collections, etc. And the second thing is that we help people perform due diligence. So instead of just kind of mindlessly jumping onto a trend, you can actually break down to understand who are the other investors putting money into a specific project. And so that can be quite important if you're trying to manage risk and making sure that you're not jumping into a project that ends up being a scam or something like that, which is unfortunately still quite common in the crypto space. And then the third thing is that we help people get notifications when certain important events happen on the blockchain. So those are kind of the three main value propositions we have as a platform. Although I would say that our typical customers are on the more sort of professional or sophisticated side of things. Our platform is a paid platform, so we don't yet have a full sort of freemium offering. But hopefully, eventually one day we could get an offering that is focused more on educating the larger market for interacting with cryptocurrencies, DeFi, and NFTs.
Yeah, and I think so to follow on that, our target market is, and the education we provide is the opposite side of the spectrum. These are people who are very new to crypto and also very new to the concept of investing. So our education tends to revolve around how to invest responsibly, building a platform that allows users to invest, go from like downloading to making their first purchase in under 10 minutes. So creating a user experience around that. It's very much catering to very much new users compared to like some of the more professional guys that Alex and Nansen serve.
Okay. So we actually do have related to that, we do have a question from the audience who's asking, I guess, for the man on the street, what do you think is the most useful applications for crypto and blockchain right now? Where are the Southeast Asia consumers on that spectrum, and as well as whether you can comment on the ESG aspects of crypto.
Oh, can I answer this? I would love to answer this question.
Go for it.
So I think still DeFi is probably the most useful application. And so just to give an example, many countries have weak or volatile currencies. And so having access to stable coins in the form of a US dollar is quite attractive to many people around the world. That's true, I'm sure, in many places in Southeast Asia. It's also true in Latin America, in Africa, and so on. So having access to basically a stable currency that you can save in is one thing. And then the beautiful thing about DeFi, in addition, is that you can get higher yields, or you can get yields at all on your savings. If you live in Argentina and you are saving in US dollars, most likely you're saving it in cash. And of course, you can't get any yields or interests on your cash. But if you were saving it in stable coins, suddenly you can actually get yields of 4% or even up to 10%, in some cases higher, depending on how much risk you want to take. But I definitely think that's another massive value add of decentralized finance in particular. And the only reason you can have these high yields is because of the decentralized finance protocols that serve or that work in the background. And so you don't need to know kind of how that capital is used on the other side. You just get interest on your savings if you're committing capital to a protocol. So for me, that is probably the primary thing that I find very, very useful for people basically in all the sorts of different countries and all different classes.
Yeah, I agree with what Alex mentioned. And I think just to add to that, like prior to crypto, for example, people in Indonesia never had access to global level asset class. Like they can only invest in local financial products, whether it's local equities, local bonds, local savings products. And so opening that up to the world, I think it's just very interesting. And it creates a powerful narrative for Indonesians to be able to invest and participate in financial products alongside the whole world, which is prior to this, not possible. So I totally agree with what Alex mentioned.
So it seems to be democratizing financial participation in that sense. But I guess there are issues around the environmental aspects of crypto, where people, they say that mining takes up a lot of electricity, and that's why in China they're clamping down on it. Do you guys have any responses to that?
I can I've thought a bit about this. I spent most of my career in the hardware business, and I think as a fan of economics, I feel like the initial cycles of any economic development are fairly destructive in nature. If you think about the Malthusian versus the Ricardian philosophy, right? It's almost like you have to dig a bunch of holes in the ground to draw oil out, and efficiency goes for a toss in the beginning of the economic cycle. I think that's where we are now, or we were at least a few years ago. The initial 10 years were pretty inefficient in how things were done, and a lot of mistakes were made. Of course, you can argue philosophically whether it really does have the impact relative to something else, but even if it does have an impact less than any other, any other technology, it still has an impact that it's not zero, right? It's non-trivial, it's non-zero. Now we have more efficient ways of mining. We have more efficient ways of proving stake, right? That were not possible a few years ago. Now we have scaling solutions like Polygon and many others that allow us to do things at 1,000th of the time it took to do just a few years ago. I feel like this ecosystem, and with the whole ETH2 launch coming up, there'll be many more efficiencies coming into the ecosystem, which will reduce the impact. Was it an impact? Absolutely. Was it non-trivial? Absolutely. Will it get better? Was it unnatural? No. This is how development does happen. Would it reduce over time? Yeah, people are thinking about it. People are going to solve it, and we are solving it. People are solving it.
Okay, and staying on you, Hemant, many VCs, they have said that, they might avoid cryptocurrencies because it's high stakes, it's high risk. They don't really understand industry, whereas you guys have been monitoring the Bitcoin development for a long time, and now you've committed investments into crypto, including Pintu. Maybe could you explain how you guys got into it, why you guys got into it, and yeah, just what convinced you about the crypto industry?
Sorry, I was on mute. In very short, we are fairly early into the crypto ecosystem, investing ecosystem. We started investing in 2013. I would say you could argue a couple of years late, but we are fairly early overall in how the economy has evolved. We invested in blockchain.com, which is our first investment, and since then, in the last 7-8 years, we've invested across all parts of crypto, including L1s, L1 alternatives, L2s, exchanges, market makers, brokerages like Pintu. We've done NFTs and so on, right? So we have touched every part of the ecosystem in the last 7-10 years. So we have to be early into things that are gaining traction. So it's a high risk bet. I feel like many other funds may not have built the knowledge base for crypto, perhaps because they didn't believe in the crypto ecosystem, or they didn't have the long-term orientation, right? So what we have done a really good job of, I feel, is that number one, having been builders before, we do have that build mentality, which I think really resonates with the crypto founders, right? If you're in it for making a quick buck, they really call you out, and often they call you out very openly. We also, as investors, we manage about $12 billion of AUM, so we have no rush, right? So we have a very, very long-term, 10-year plus horizon to hold the investments, and that really works, right? When there's a lot of grab and go kind of an attitude in crypto sometimes, and then we have long-term orientation that really works. Third, we are fairly community-oriented. We participate in community discussions. We support the community in many other ways than just investing. We are actively involved in community management, decision making, and so on. And that just gives the founders the impression that we are in it for the benefit of the community, not just for investment returns only, right? So yeah, that's what I feel we have done a good job of. And specific to crypto, given how complicated the business is, we have spent a bunch of time individually to sort of dig into it very deeply, and that has really benefited us in the last 7-10 years.
Okay, I'm just you things like protocol, coins, and all these terms, and how did you really study this industry, and are there some pitfalls that an investor who wants to go into this should consider?
So I think this is a fairly technical business, so my engineering background does help a lot in understanding the basics of this. But if you're new to this and probably struggle with the technical aspect, I would say find somebody in your team, in your venture team, who's a regular degen, so to speak, and then sort of spends a couple of years digging deep into this, right? It's still very early in terms of where we are, right? So nobody's late here, I would say. Find somebody who spends his or her entire time in crypto, digs deep in. The rabbit hole goes very, very deep. It gets really, really complicated. It changes very, very rapidly. And there's a lot of stuff that seems legit, but is not, including founders, right? So you got to really understand the crypto, mindset, right? Almost get a feel for it, not just analyze it, but almost get a feel for it. So it takes time, but it does have to have a technical background. But yeah, you can still do it without it, in my opinion.
Okay. We have actually 2 more audience questions. I'll go with the first one first. There's someone who asked, is there a chance that Bitcoin and Ethereum might actually drop to 0?
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Jeth?
Sure. I think that's related to my business. Sometimes I do get this question. It's a non-zero probability, but I would say it's very close, much closer to 0. I think there's a high likelihood that it doesn't. I mean, just from the economic standpoint of how the ecosystem works, you've got miners to pay out, and they need to make a living from running the network. And there's just a lot of these, the way the crypto economy is built, that I don't think Bitcoin will go to 0, or just a high likelihood that it doesn't, from my opinion.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think maybe the worst case scenario for Bitcoin is that it becomes like a collectible for internet history. That's like the worst case, and even in that case, it doesn't go to zero because people will still want to own a piece of it, almost just as owning a collectible part of the internet history. So, yeah, I think it's very, very unlikely it would ever go to zero.
Okay. And another question was actually, do you think there will be more crypto mining in Indonesia in the future? Why or why not?
Actually, there's a lot of people who ask me this question within Indonesia. So I do think there will be, because of a number of factors. We do have a lot of natural resources, natural resources that are sort of like trapped and not close to areas where there's a lot of energy use. And so out in the eastern part of Indonesia or in the middle of Kalimantan, there's a lot of coal deposits, there's a lot of gas, there's a lot of hydropower that don't have demand, electricity demand. And with crypto mining, like, it's very easy for you to set up a mining rig and attach that to some sort of like power plant and run your mining rig in the middle of nowhere and stream your Bitcoins through the internet. So I do think that there's massive potential there to unlock energy resources that are historically been trapped because of geographic conditions.
Okay. And I just want to switch a little bit, kind of curious about going back to NFTs. I mean, they are now a new asset class, it's not just cryptocurrencies anymore. And, it seems that actually anyone theoretically can issue NFTs. So do you think there is scope in the market for entities to play a sort of curatorial role to, value an NFT, or does this go against the kind of the ethos of NFTs?
Could you rephrase that question, Rachel?
So do you think that there is like a place for maybe people to actually start to value NFTs because theoretically anyone can issue them now? It's like it's a bit of a hype, or do you think that it goes against kind of the ethos of the community where we start to have people valuing this kind of this asset?
I think NFTs are definitely community driven. I think just like crypto was in the early days, I think just like any type of art, it's based on the perception of people who value it. It's very much driven by communities. And just like art in the real world, right? A Van Gogh sells for however much it is because people perceive that there's value in it, and it's a community who appreciate the art in it. And I think that's the same. A lot of the principles I think applies to NFTs as well today.
Okay. Sorry, just one more. What do you guys make of the critique that cryptocurrencies look like another gold rush leading up to the financial crisis, which was actually said by, I think there was a guy in the US, Michael Su, the acting controller.
I can take this one. I mean, look, came into the crypto ecosystem very skeptical. Like many years ago, and for many years before. My first Bitcoin purchase was 2016, late 2016, kind of reaching the first hype cycle at the time. One of the things that I would recommend, because a lot of people have the same question, is to read this book called Devil Take the Hindmost, A History of Financial Speculation. It really helped me understand that, because my primary objection against crypto in general was that it's very speculation driven, and NFTs are speculation driven now, and I think something else will become speculation driven tomorrow. But that is not an unnatural behavior for humans in general, not just in financial ecosystems, but everywhere else. And speculative markets have been a lot bigger than non-speculative markets throughout the history of finance. If you go all the way back to Roman era, speculation was banned back then because it was so rampant, right? And so speculation has been part of the ecosystem since thousands of years. It will remain part of the ecosystem for the foreseeable future. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it leads to sometimes bad results, but this is not an avoidable situation. This is not an unnatural situation that is specific to crypto, right? So could this be a gold rush? Or was it a gold rush for a while? Is it a gold rush for some people? Yes, yes, and yes. Does it mean the ecosystem as a whole bad? Well, it's as good as bad probably as the traditional finance has been, right? I mean, there are issues with that and there are issues with this. And people are solving, for both sides. So we'll see where this lands. But I don't think this is a gold rush of any kind in a way that is different from any other gold rushes that we've had in the past.
Okay, that's great. And I think just to end, because we only have about 4 minutes left, just kind of want to leave it to you guys to talk about what your future plans are. I think for Jeth and Alex, what's the next step for your company? You guys just raise funds as well. What's next? And for Hemant, we actually read that maybe Lightspeed was considering a separate fund to invest in blockchain-related ventures. Is that still a plan that's upcoming, or else, like, how else is Lightspeed looking at this industry?
Alex, you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to go first. So what we are trying to do with Nansen is to become the category leader for crypto analytics. And so effectively, we have to adopt or adapt to a multi-chain world, which is something that has increasingly become important. It used to be the case that you had Bitcoin, which obviously was used for Bitcoin transfers primarily, and then you had Ethereum for smart contracts. In this new world, we also have many other smart contract platforms. So making sure we can support them becomes very important. From a company perspective, we have to ramp up dramatically on the team. We've gone from about 3 people to 53 in 1 year. And so we want to continue growing the team. Eventually, I think as a company, we're going to go beyond analytics in analogous terms to Bloomberg, for example, in traditional finance, which is in many ways accepted as kind of the de facto tool that everyone needs to have. We want to get to a position where everyone in crypto feels like they need to have a Nansen account for information, for analytics, potentially for social features, and maybe even transactional features eventually. So those are some of the areas that we're looking forward to with Nansen.
Yeah. For us, our whole vision is like building this cryptocurrency bank for the Indonesian market and gradually for the Southeast Asian market. And along those lines, today we serve retail customers. And within this category, we want to broaden our services beyond just investing and trading, but broadening up the type of assets beyond just cryptocurrencies, potentially into tokenized equities or even digital collectibles, as well as also helping our customers monetize those assets that are currently sitting passively, right? So launching yield products makes a lot of sense for our retail customers. And then separate to that, if you think about like how a bank serves their customers, there's different arms. Some are serving retail, and then some are also serving institutions, corporations for different use cases. And we also see ourselves opening up to those type of customers who have very different needs. But eventually, our whole goal is to be a full-fledged like crypto bank serving different types of customers.
As an investor, my job is way, way easier than what Alex and Jeth have to figure out. Our strategy is exactly what it was 20, 25 years ago. Find the best founders, going after the biggest markets and back them with capital, connections, expertise and everything else that required to build large companies. We don't have plans to raise a crypto-specific fund. We don't have one today. We don't talk about our investment fundraise strategies publicly. But yeah, I mean, from the main fund, we have made about over 20 investments, and many of them in the last year and a half. So we are fairly active in the ecosystem and continue to be very bullish about crypto and blockchain in general globally.
Thanks, guys, and all the best. Really hope to see what else you guys are up to next. And we thank you guys for joining us for this session. Even more questions, I think the panelists will be happy to answer them via email. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.